Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call this meeting to order this morning, the first day of February. I'd like to call the meeting to order by asking Pastor Greg Seats to lead us in the invocation. He's from the Hilltop Foursquare Church, and then Supervisor Moss will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you would all bow your hearts before me. Lord Father God, we thank you. We thank you for this opportunity to come before your throne, Lord, to come as your children and say, Father, we commit our work unto you because your word says that you will establish our thoughts. Lord, your word tells us that great is the nation whose God is the Lord. Lord, I ask today for divine wisdom upon all of us, those that are in leadership, Father God, and those that are here, Lord God, to do your work. Father, we commit everything unto you because we know, Lord God, that you are merciful and just. And we ask that justice would prevail today in all of our proceedings. And Lord God, that you would get all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. We ask this in the strong and powerful name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we do have a quorum this morning, and the Board of Supervisors may by motion recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorneys on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A3 and 4. Okay, the chair will now entertain a motion and action for an executive session to be held on February the 16th, 2016 at 9:30 a.m. or at the conclusion at the regular meeting, whichever is later. This will be for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 38-431.03A3 and 4 to discuss the items noticed on the agenda with an asterisk.
Second.
Motion and second. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Going on to the official business to come before the board this morning. Number one, discussion of pending or contemplated legal litigation claims and demands. Attorney Ekstrom, do you have anything?
I have nothing this morning, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any committee and/or legislative reports, starting with Supervisor Angus?
None this morning, thank you.
Supervisor Moss?
Briefly, in pursuant to our agreement that was facilitated by Governor Ducey's office and Arizona Department of Water Resources, Supervisor Angus and I did attend the first of the county's meetings a week ago today on the, I'll call it the water issues involving northern Arizona. And so it was more of an orientation meeting. Well, I'm sure we'll have more to report if and when we schedule an executive session to go into the details because of the confidentiality agreement.
Great, glad to hear that. Supervisor Watson?
I'll pass.
And Supervisor Johnson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just that worked this weekend on the NACO resolution that I had told you about last meeting. We had a competing resolution from Montana. Through the weekend, we've come to an agreement with Montana and everybody, and right now the wording is proposed resolution opposing continued wilderness characteristics inventory, but that could change by then. But we resolved our issues, and we're moving ahead with one resolution.
Okay, thank you. And I did attend with Supervisor Watson the legislative CSA meeting in Phoenix. So, thank you, supervisors. I'll now entertain a motion for the approval of the December 21st, 2015 regular meeting minutes of the Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll now open the call to the public. Those wishing to address the board at the call of the public regarding matters not on the board agenda must fill out and submit to the clerk a call to the public request to speak form located in the back of the room prior to the meeting. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to responding to criticism, referral to staff, or placing a matter on a future agenda. Comments are restricted to items not on the regular agenda with the exception of the consent agenda and must relate to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. So I do have 3 people that have signed up to speak, and we'll start with Mr. Steve Robinson, who states he wants to speak on the LaVoy Finnegan issue. Mr. Robinson, you have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I am Steve Robinson, 3439 North Bowie Road, Golden Valley, Arizona. Sadly to say, a new friend of mine, LaVoy Finnegan, died last Tuesday under tragic circumstances. I first saw a video of him about 4 months ago that raised my curiosity. In that video, he described that a trio of officials from federal, state, and county came to him and said, please stop your protest of exercising your ancestral rights to graze because we might lose our PILT money, we might lose our grazing rights, we might lose our hunting rights. Unfortunately, fortunately for the county and the people, we haven't lost any of those things. But Mr. LaVoy Finnegan, standing up for our constitutional rights, lost his life. Whether the circumstances were right or wrong will be left up for the officials to decide. But the fact that he was standing up for our constitutional rights to life, liberty, and property is why he died. And I just hope we can all remember him and remember the fight that we have started both nationally and within our own county as we support the American Lands Council. I encourage all of us to really work hard and work together and let his death not be in vain as we work to fight for our rights as guaranteed by God through the Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. The next speaker is Rick Armstrong. Mr. Armstrong, if you'll give us your name and address, you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors. I'm Rick Armstrong from Golden Valley. In light of what has happened up in Harney County, I want to say that I do support the transferring of the public lands back to local control, that we can improve public access, the health of the environment, and restore economic productivity of these lands. But we have to ask ourselves, is Mohave County prepared for the type of incident that happened up in Harney County? Have the committees of safety been implemented? Does the board understand the Constitution as it's written? As each one of you have taken an oath to support and defend it. We need to ask ourselves, is our sheriff a constitutionalist? This is the time to not only show management, but to step up and show true leadership. We have to ask ourselves, in this incident, would the Board of Supervisors support the landowner and their rights, the constituents of Mohave County, or bow down to the feds? Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Mr. R.G. Bishop. Good morning, Mr. Bishop.
Good morning. Good morning. R.G. Bishop, 251 North Friendship Pass, Kingman, Arizona. Many people come here to take the opportunity to complain about things that are going on or speak their point of view, and I want to change that up a little bit this morning. I'm here as the co-chairman of the Citizens for Progress group, about 60 members of our local community, along with my co-chairman, Dr. Lindsay, to say a heartfelt thank you from our entire community. You have been here to support us and help us to alleviate a 10-year discussion we've been having with a local business that's creating a lot of noise pollution in our community. And I wanted to specifically thank Gary Watson, who missed the meeting, where the regional president of Kinder Morgan Company announced that that they are in fact going to invest probably $1 million plus to fix our problem and take care of the community, reduce the noise pollution. And I wanted to also extend that thank you to Gene Bishop. Both of you two have met with us on many, many occasions, starting over a year ago. And once you heard what we had to say, you stood up for us. And I would like to believe that Kinder Morgan, although it's a great company, and Richard Kinder, the CEO and chairman, has personally approved over $1 million to fix this problem. I would like to believe that the fact that you showed up at 5 a.m. to have breakfast before a test and sat there and listened to that got their attention. And the citizens do not often have a win, and we would like to give that credit specifically to you. So thank you very much for your support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, I'll now close the call to the public and move on to the consent agenda. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion of said items unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Do any of the supervisors have anything they would like posed, starting with Supervisor Johnson
Nothing, Madam Chair.
and Supervisor Watson?
I feel tempted to pull something because Supervisor Johnson didn't, but no, I have nothing this morning.
All right, Supervisor Moss
Pull item 17.
and Supervisor Angus. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve items 5 through 24 minus item 17.
So moved.
Motion is second. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. We'll go on to item number 17. Approve an appropriation of $1,658,078 sourced to Fund 205 HERF to complete 50.9 miles of pavement preservation and rehabilitation projects on existing county-maintained roadways and 6.7 miles of possible soil stabilization projects to hard surface roadways as designated by the board. Yeah, I do have one person that's signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Steve Robinson, if you want to tell us what's on your mind.
Madam Chair, Board, I'm very pleased that the county is using her funds to improve the road conditions across the county, including Golden Valley. I've been looking over this list intently, and I had questions on 3 roads, specifically those in Golden Valley that I have concerns with. The first one is chip sealing Mineral Park Road from the turnoff to the landfill up to the end of the road at the mine. When you chip seal a road that gets no action, no driving action, the chip seal becomes brittle and it'll ultimately just dry up and blow away. So the whole advantage of chip sealing is to have the heat and the motion from driving on it, improving the road and establishing the chip seal. So that, why are we doing a road that is not going to be used unless we know, there's something we don't know? The other 2 roads that I have a concern about, and is Colorado Road from Burro to Agua Fria. It was only accepted at tertiary maintenance last January, a year ago, and if it doesn't meet the standards for regular road maintenance, why are we planning to put basically a form of paving down with MC 250 and double chip seal? The last road that I have concerns about is Legend Ranch Road. Now, it's a beautiful, very wide, very good road that was obviously done by Mr. Brooks when he built the Legends Ranch subdivision. But One of the issues I have is the fact that it's not in, according to the 2014 HERF report, it's not in the regular maintenance system. In fact, it has its own Legend Ranch Improvement District. Why is the county citizens paying for a road that I believe, according to state law, we cannot improve or even spend any money in maintenance of it if it's not in the improvement or in the maintenance system? It was not listed last 2014 in that list. So I can think of a lot better, and that road only gets, the final issue I have with it, it gets maybe 30 cars a day now. My road, Bowie Road, gets 200 plus a day because people use that as a shortcut. My last comment about that road is I really was glad to see that there's some attention to it, because I've looked, and that is part of a future, in my opinion, a future byway from mile marker 34 off of I-40 all the way up through Golden Valley to help traffic avoid going all the way into Kingman. So that's my concern with those roads. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Director Lakowski, would you like to address the board and give us a summary of this item?
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. This action establishes a budget for the spring 2016 road program, which consists of 3 components: our heavy maintenance chip seal and level course program, which will be completed by county forces; a soil stabilization program, which will involve roadways that will be presented before the Board of Supervisors at a later date for contemplation to designate as county highways. This particular action will only set aside a potential budget for future soil stabilization actions, as well as our capital pavement preservation program, which is budgeted in the FY16 budget for $500,000. This action contemplates doing work just above that threshold. Overall, the program is really robust. It provides for approximately 51 miles of pavement maintenance treatments on existing county paved roadways, as well as what I mentioned, the approximate 6.5 miles of potential improvement of unsurfaced roadways. With regard to the speaker and the questions that were raised, the questions concerning the soil stabilization related roadways, those roadways will be presented at a later date to the Board of Supervisors as it relates to establishing those as county highways for the purposes of bringing them up to a higher standard. They are roadways which are either collector arterial roadways. They also have been laid out consistent with county standards and have right-of-way in place consistent with county standards. And then with regard to Mineral Park Road, Public Works Department is understanding that activity has picked up on the segment of Mineral Park Road east of the landfill entrance as relates to the Duval mine operations. It is taking on some additional traffic due to the daily operations at the mine, and if we don't act in a prudent manner and provide some level of preventive maintenance treatment, we stand to incur a significant impact on that section of roadway in the greater future.
Okay, thank you very much. Supervisor Moss, I'll turn this over to you now, since you pulled it.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. When it comes to item 17, it has to deal with road issues, and it's my belief that we should be considering this after item 29, which is concerning our Transportation Committee. So I think if we're going to expand, and I don't know if we are or not, but if that is our decision, we should defer this for discussion until after 29.
Okay, do we need a motion?
I move that we continue item 17 and following the conclusion of discussion on item 29.
Okay, is there any other comments or statements any of the other supervisors would like to make? Supervisor Watson.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Mr. Otomsky, how many paved miles do we have on our system?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Watson, as of the end of 2015, we have approximately 803, just over 800 miles of paved roads in our county highway network.
And how many miles of unpaved roads?
Supervisor Watson, we have approximately 1,300 miles of unsurfaced roadways within the county road maintenance system.
Thank you, Mr. Listowski.
Okay, anybody else have any comments? Supervisor Angus, Supervisor Johnson?
None, ma'am.
Okay, I will make one statement. The road in Golden Valley between Mineral Park Road and, what is it, Agua Fria on Colorado, that would eliminate, I believe, a lot of criminal littering and dumping that's out in the desert, because that road leads right to the Mohave County landfill. So I just wanted to point that out, that if accessibility to the landfill was easier for Golden Valley folks, I would be hopeful that that would eliminate a lot of the illegal dumping. With that being said, do you have anything else you'd like to add? Mr. Lakowski?
Madam Chair, no, not at this time, but certainly be available for any questions of the board.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Okay, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
And I will oppose that too. So that fails 3-2. So I'll now entertain another motion.
Motion to approve item 17.
Second the motion?
Motion to approve, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, 3-2, motion passes. Okay, going on to the public hearings. I'll open the public hearing on item number 25. Discussion of possible action, reference Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2016-014, amendment to the South Mohave Valley Area Plan. It's from an RR residential recreation land use designation to a GC, general commercial land use designation for assessor's parcel number 216-06153 in the South Mohave Valley vicinity, Evans Lane between Wild Rush Lane and Courtright Road, Mohave County. The commission recommended approval by unanimous vote, and we do have one speaker who has signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Ken Greenway. Mr. Greenway, if you will come up and tell us what's on your mind.
It's actually Gregory.
What is that?
Gregory, not Greenway.
I must
Oh,
have
I'm
the
sorry.
handwriting of an attorney. Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Ken Gregory. I'm an attorney. I practice in Bullhead City at 3640 Highway 95. Today I represent Suzanne Evans, who is the property owner directly across the street from the property in question. Ms. Evans owns a farm and has a little vegetable farm stand at that location. Ms. Evans organized a coalition of people in the neighborhood in opposition to this request, and just this past Friday had a meeting at her property, and Supervisor Moss, Supervisor Angus were nice enough to attend, and so were the people from WestCare. Basically, the reason that meeting was organized was the members of the area community were concerned about the upzone of the property from residential to a C2 commercial zone. The property in question is literally surrounded by residential uses and a farm. It's a very rural area, farm type of uses. So an upzone to C2 was concerning, and I didn't hear anybody at the meeting complain about the intended use in terms of helping veterans. Everybody agrees that's a laudable cause and wants to do anything and everything to help the veterans who are in distress in our communities. So this is not about veterans in our view. This is about land use and making our zoning make sense, and ultimately preservation of property values for my client and the surrounding neighborhood. As a result of the discussions on Friday night and discussions earlier this morning with both Supervisors Angus and Moss and with members of the county staff, we feel a good resolution has been reached in that the R2 zoning will accommodate the use intended by WestCare. which is a treatment facility for approximately 20 veterans in need of assistance, be it for substance abuse counseling, be it for counseling with post-traumatic stress disorder, those sorts of injuries. R2 will accommodate such a use, and in addition to that, WestCare, I think, would ask for a special use permit, at least that's what was discussed this morning, to allow for more hospital-style care, special treatment that might not otherwise be available in an adult care facility. So I assume that one of the two supervisors who are parties to these discussions would make a motion along those lines. I can tell you both, Ms. Evans and the community members, thank you very much for the compromise that we feel has been reached and the efforts of all of our discussions. So thank you very much for listening to their concerns and taking them to heart.
Thank you very much. Do any of the supervisors have any questions of the speaker?
I don't, but I do have a question for Ms. Ballard.
Okay, Ms. Ballard. Apparently we have some questions for you. Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Ballard. When it comes to item 26, I believe was the appropriate place to deal with the specific, what I'll term as a compromise still in keeping with the residential neighborhood. But for item 25, when it comes to amending the plan, if I was to make a motion on item 26, hypothetically, to say not C2 but R2, what would we have to amend the plan as part of item 25 to accommodate that action?
Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, Mr. Moss, members of the board, it's the department's opinion that assuming that the motion on 26 that is made is in line with the compromise that the previous speaker described, there would not be a need to amend the plan.
So we could take no action on 25, and that would allow us to move to 26 and talk about the R2 zoning with the special use permit for a hospital.
If that's the direction the board wanted to go, yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I'd like to say something, if that's okay. I want to take this opportunity to thank the residents on Evans Street, Suzanne Evans, and the rest of the community who came out on Friday. And it was very interesting, and I think it showed how when we do things, if we all come together and we talk about it and get our concerns out, there's usually solutions, and I think this time it worked, and I want to thank everybody. It was kind of emotional. Everybody wants to help our veterans, but still there were community issues, and thank you for letting us know them in a very polite and mannerly way. I appreciated it, so I wanted to thank everybody.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion. Or do we need a motion since we're not taking any action?
To speed things along, I'll just move that we take no action on 25.
Okay. Going on to item number 26. Open the public hearing on this item. Discussion of possible action, Board of Supervisors Resolution number 2016-015. It's a rezone of assessor parcel number 216-06153 from an RE residential recreation zone to a C2 general commercial zone. This will allow for a veteran service center in the South Mohave Valley vicinity on Evans Lane between Windrush Lane and Courtright Road, Mohave County, Arizona. The commission recommended approval by unanimous vote conditioned on the facilities solely being used for veterans, the fence and other deficiencies on the property to be repaired. The applicant is to contact neighbors who objected prior to their February 1st, 2016 Board of Supervisors meeting. The property zone is to revert back if the use changes and the facility maximum is set at 20 veterans. Okay, I have no one that has signed up to speak on this item. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, I will now close the I'll close the public hearing and ask the board members if they have any comments or questions, starting with Supervisor Moss.
When it comes to commentary, I'd like to say that echo Supervisor Angus's comments that Friday evening was a very good meeting. I appreciate that WestCare's Chief Operating Officer, Maurice, who's in the audience, showed up, and I will say, sir, that you were graceful under fire. You did a really good job there. But I would think it was a very important discussion to have, because as we heard from WestCare, as we heard from the residents, we managed to, and from Mr. Gregory, we were able, I believe, to craft a resolution which takes into account everybody's concerns. And if the chairman would indulge me, I would make a motion just to get it on the record, and that way I don't have to worry about missing my proper language, and then we can have any further discussion. And the motion that I would like to make is that I move that we approve BOS Resolution Number 2016-015, being a rezone of Assessor's Parcel Number 216-06-135 from an 153, excuse me, I misspoke, from an RZ recreational zone, provided, however, that the rezone will be not C2 as recommended, but R2, together with granting a special use permit for use as a hospital and other uses consistent with the contemplated Veterans Center in the South Mohave Valley vicinity of Evans Lane between Windrush Lane and Courtright Road in Mohave County, Arizona, together with all conditions imposed by planning and zoning. I think I got everything in there.
I think you did. We have a motion. Do we have a second? I have a second. Okay. All those in favor signify.
Discussion on that, or?
Oh, absolutely. Supervisor Johnson, why don't you lead that out for us?
Well, I guess it would be, Ms. Ballard would be the question I would have for her. We noticed a rezoning, and now we're changing that. And this was done obviously not in the public view of anybody, and not giving other people a chance. I don't know who all attended this meeting this morning. I noticed it wasn't, a full board where people could discuss it. Does this need to go back to planning and zoning where we can have a public hearing on this?
Madam Chairman, Mr. Johnson, members of the board, this is a question I'd really like to defer to the county attorney's office, and I believe Mr. Taylor is here. I do know that there is case law that has supported rezoning to a lesser intense zone than is recommended by the commission. And I'll turn the mic, if you don't mind, over to Mr. Taylor, who can kind of flesh out the details.
I would think so, just to give people a chance.
Chairman Bishop and Supervisor Johnson, Chris Ballard is right. There is case law that supports a change in the recommended zoning to a more restrictive zone. It's under the theory that the public is not being jeopardized because you're more restrictive than that which you've advertised, and I think that Supervisor Moss's motion could be defended in that respect.
If I can give an example, Supervisor Johnson, it's like being charged with murder but convicted of attempted murder. It's just it's just a segment under the same umbrella.
I mean, I understand that. I'm just thinking that that it should go back to a hearing where it's posted instead of something that was done at the last minute in front of the board. I mean, that was my only concern.
Okay, Supervisor Watson, do you have any comments?
And my concern only is the posting also. That's my only concern. I'm certainly for the project. My concern is the posting.
And I would say that the posting would normally be a concern if we were going to a less desirable use. We are going, in other words, further away from RE, but we're pulling it closer to RE.
Understand.
So I think we're fine on that. And I believe that the county attorney agrees with me on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the county attorney that concurs, and so if there's no further discussion, we'll take the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
No?
Okay, 4-1, motion passes. Okay, going on to item 27. Open the public hearing on this item. Discussion of possible action, reference Board of Supervisors Resolution Number 2016-016, to rescind and cause the property to revert from a C2H/10A general commercial highway frontage 10-acre minimum lot size zone to the previous zone of AR/10A agriculture residential 10-acre minimum lot size for failure to meet the conditions of approval as specified in Board Resolution Numbers 2003-311, 2008-269, 2011-154, and 2013-151A, which conditionally approved the rezone of Assessor's Parcel Number 25431-008C, 009F, 009G, 25433, 004A, 005B, and 011C in the Silverado vicinity, Mohave County, Arizona. The commission recommended rescind by unanimous vote. We have one person that has signed up to speak on this item, Mr. R.G. Bishop. If you'd like to come down, give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good morning again.
Good
R.G.
morning.
Bishop, 251 North Friendship Pass, Kingman, Arizona. I originally spoke on this some months ago, and then I did again last month because there was there's no matrix to help us understand exactly what was originally proposed and what is still, I think, confusing to me. I haven't seen a chart that transcribes from the old parcel numbering system, which has been broken into some 20 parcels now, to the new system. But if you look carefully at the motions that were originally intended, there were originally 9 parcels involved. Those 9 parcels subsequently were broken into 15 or 16 subparcels. But the final one that they're voting on today only addresses 6 of those 15 subparcels. So I just asked for some kind of scorecard. I mean, I absolutely support the council and the planning and zoning group trying to clean up some of these old conditional zoning rules that weren't followed through. I absolutely support that. But in my opinion, the original 9 that were approved are now some 15 or 16 separate parcel numbers, and we're only talking about 6 this morning. So that's all. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any of the supervisors have any questions of Mr. Bishop? Okay, Ms. Ballard, do you want to address Mr. Bishop's concerns?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, when Mr. Bishop brought this to the attention of the department and the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department went back and did a full audit of all parcels and parcel numbers to determine what the change in ownership was, what the change in zoning was over the years, as well as what parcels were vested and what were not. If I might read a paragraph from the resolution that gives the information that Mr. Bishop is requesting. In 2003, the area was rezoned via BOS Resolution 2003-311. Also included portions of parcels 12 and 13 in Section 5 and parcel 10 in section 9 of Township 20 North, Range 13 West. A portion of, I'm losing my place here, sorry. A portion of parcels 12 and 13, APNs 25431, 013F, 013G, 013H, 013J, and 013K were sold to another party, and a rezone was obtained by that buyer via BOS Resolution 2007-519. The remainder of parcels 12 and 13 have been acquired by the Arizona Department of Transportation for the further improvement of Highway 93 and are no longer in Mohave County's jurisdiction. The rezone approved in the resolution, that previous resolution mentioned, was vested and is not a part of this rescission, and that was BOS Resolution 2007-519. The portion of parcel 10 was purchased by a third party who requested that that rezoning revert to an AR 10A, agriculture residential 10-acre minimum lot size, which was the zone prior to the rezone requested by Silverado. That reversion was complete with BOS Resolution 2013-151A, and that rescission will not be affected by the board's actions today. Rescinding both 2003 and 11 and the board Resolution 2013-15A will have no net effect on this parcel. It will still remain AR 10A.
Okay, thank you. Did that answer your questions, Mr. Bishop?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that didn't sign up to speak that would like to speak on this item? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do any of the supervisors have any comments or any discussion, starting with Supervisor Watson?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to make a motion this morning to rescind the resolution 2006-016.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Going on to item number 28, discussion of possible action, opposition of Arizona House Bill 2403, tax lien deeds, aggregate fees as introduced by Representative Vince Leach. I have no one signed up to speak for this item, and I'll turn the floor over to Supervisor Johnson, who put this agenda item on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was proposed last year, and it went down to the wire in the middle of the night when legislators were voting. I think the backup explains it. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer them. But on the one parcel, which would still come into effect because they're going to go all the way back, this is going to get them, would mean that that person would be paying 17 cents a parcel in tax lien deed fees, while the regular county taxpayer pays $50. Last year, we had a split on our legislatures on the vote. This time, if the board so chooses, I think we should send a letter saying that we'd appreciate all people voting against this. That was all I had, Madam Chair.
All right. Anyone else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Was that, for clarification, is that a motion for a resolution?
Resolution or letter, either way, whichever's easiest. You know, so good to have a letter signed by the chairman. You know.
I move that the Board of Supervisors voice our opposition to Arizona House Bill 2403, tax lien deeds, aggregate fees, as introduced by Representative Vince Leach, and that the Board of Supervisors do so via letter signed by the chairman speaking on behalf of the entire board.
Okay. Motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Going on to item number 29, discussion of possible action, continuing roles, duties, and responsibilities of the Mohave County Transportation Commission. We do have one person that has signed up to speak on this item, Mr. Steve Robinson. Oh, I'm sorry, we have two people. Mr. Steve Robinson, we'll start with you. If you'd like to come up, give us your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Steve Robinson, Golden Valley. The Transportation Commission was formed in 1997 to address the issue of cronyism on roads, the selection of roads for becoming county highways. It is very much like the Planning and Zoning Commission in that it listens to the people. It's the people's nominations or people's representatives to address the issues of roads. While the Planning and Zoning Commission addresses what people will spend with their own money for rezoning and development, the Transportation Commission addresses what the county will spend out of it's her funds for roads. I believe it's time that we really focus on improving the stature of the Transportation Commission. I've heard rumor, in fact, it was in the paper today, that there's I'm not doing four-letter words. Anyway, that there was talk about getting rid of the commission. Right now, there's 4 vacancies on this board, and it's unfortunate that people's voices are being stilted by default. I would really encourage you to go ahead and expand the role of the commission so we can look at roads like the ones that were in item 17. Oh, I have 66 minutes. No. Anyway, so that's what I have to say, is that we really need to expand this commission, not abandon it. It is the one chance people have to address about different roads, and it should be more than just county highways. It should be tertiary roads. It should be regularly maintained roads, so that the efficacy of those roads can be addressed by the citizens. I really encourage you to expand this and give the people a stronger voice, and the vacancies be filled so that, in fact, I would encourage you to consider putting that commission right up here on the second Tuesday of every month, just like the second Wednesday of the month has the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you very much. I hope you will really consider expanding the role of the commission.
Okay, our next speaker is Jeannie Kench. If you give us your name and your address for the record, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairperson Bishop and board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jeannie Kench. I reside at 1004 Vista Drive in Lake Havasu. I am the current chairperson for the Mohave County Transportation Commission that we're all speaking of. The Transportation Commission was established in 1997 by the urging of Supervisor Johnson. And if I remember correctly, it's kind of nice to live here that long. It was approved due to the desire to eliminate some sweetheart road deals that were amongst the supervisors at that time, and for assisting the supervisors to keep up with the many roads and the road improvements needs for the county. Thank you, Supervisor Johnson. The commission acts as a recommending body to the Board of Supervisors on planning and construction of capital improvement transportation projects. When roads are suggested for improvement, they are vetted by the Public Works, the Transportation Commission, and the Board of Supervisors before being included in the county highway program. This assures the public road dollars are well spent and keeps the county highway program transparent for assured fiscal responsibility. According to Article 3, Section 2 of the Mohave County Board of Supervisors Transportation Commission bylaws, the commission should be filled with 10 appointed members, 2 members from each district. At this time, the commission has 6 appointed members. I am chairperson from Supervisor Moss's District 5, and Michael Bell joins me as board member. Ray Lackey is vice chair for Supervisor Angus, District 2, and has been there since the inception of the board, or of the commission. Karen Flanagan also represents District 2, and Frank Eakins represents Supervisor Bishop's District 4. Victoria Hogue represents Supervisor Watkins' District 1. We have an excellent commissioners that bring with them a plethora of invaluable road experience to help you guys, help the Board of Supervisors. Unfortunately, at this time, we have no appointed members for Supervisor Johnson's District 3. The commission reviews and updates its recommended road construction program annually through the 5-year construction improvement road program called the SIRP. The county SIRP program is instrumental in establishing a priority to the county road expansion needs. These priorities are established through the hard work of the County Public Works Department and the Transportation Commission through input and review prior to being submitted for approval to the Board of Supervisors. The SIRP is often instrumental in the county pursuing state and federal grant opportunities, documenting the road improvement priorities on a yearly basis. The Mohave County Transportation Commission provides an assurance of transparency to the citizens of the county by allowing for another layer of review. The commission also provides a venue for citizens to be a part of this decisions made in regards to Mohave County highways. I, as well as the commission members, thank you for the opportunity to continue to assist both the citizens and the board by being members of the Mohave County Transportation Commission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Supervisor Moss, this is under your name. I'll turn this over to you and let you lead out the discussion.
Thank you. This has been, I guess, touched upon from time to time over the last 3 years that I've been on the board, and some of the other supervisors have been present. Roads are amongst the most critical issues, one of the most critical services that we provide as a local government agency, and it's certainly one of those issues that we receive amongst the most frequent and passionate input. And I believe the commission is being underutilized. And I believe that based upon observing it in action over the last 3 years. And it occurs to me that as resources become scarce, that means our ability to service and maintain and take in our roads become more pressing, but the resources are lacking, which creates a trust issue between us and the public. And if we want to, in the era of scarcer resources, reassure the public, I believe it is incumbent upon us that we expand the role of the commission. For example, at least in my district, my commissioners, Jeannie Kench and Mike Bell, they are habitually inspecting the roads that are brought to the commission, and they're comparing them to neighboring roadways to make sure the money is being well spent. My commissioners, and I believe the other commissioners, interact with our residents, our voters. And basically, it's a multiplier effect, because not just the supervisors can talk and explain the road situation, but you also have 2 commissioners who are intimately involved with it. So it is a great assistance in reassuring the public that the county is not ignoring their concerns, but we have to put the money where it can be most used for, and sometimes that's not necessarily their street, it's the neighboring street. It provides an additional layer of transparency in the process, because more minds on the problem, more questions are asked, more information is developed, and that also reassures the public. It provides increased opportunities for community input. And Lord knows, we need more opportunities for community input based upon our manufacturing housing problem that we experienced a month or 2 back. And so when it comes to having a notice meeting in front of the commission, followed by a notice meeting to the Board of Supervisors, it's very similar to the process that P&Z engages in, which is also another critical county function. And finally, it increases the county's opportunity for advocacy. I know Supervisor Bishop and I both attended a recent ADOT meeting where we had a packed room discussing ADOT's legislative and financial priorities. And I believe we had 4 of our commissioners in that room, in addition to 2 of the supervisors, in addition to members of the public. And we managed as a whole, I think, to express the concerns of Mohave County extremely well. Because of that multiplier effect. It just wasn't 2 supervisors, it was also members of our commission. And we have a group, because I've seen them there, who occasionally attend the state and regional transportation commission meetings advocating on behalf of Mohave County. The commission, I believe, for those reasons or more, is vital in order for us to reassure our public that if your road is not pristine, it's because we do not want it to be pristine. It's because we lack the resources, and that we have many eyes and ears on boots in the ground, whether it's your elected official, whether it's your public works department, whether it's your volunteer commissioner members, all engage in the problem, and we're doing the best we can with what we have. And so I think when it comes to reassuring the public of this, that when it comes to these items, we need to have them vetted first by the commission. And that would provide them a greater degree of trust in a time of scarcer resources. And that's why I brought this back here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Supervisor Angus, do you have anything to add?
So right now, there are 2 ways roads can be taken in, and one is by petition going through the commission, and the other is from our Public Works Department doing a survey and giving it and putting it in front of the board, correct?
Madam Chairman, Supervisor Angus, there's on maintaining roadways, there's actually, a roadway can be maintained either by constructing a subdivision. I think it's 11.822 says that if a road is constructed in accordance with that statute and it's in accordance with county standards, within 1 year that road shall be accepted for maintenance by the board, regardless of anything else. It's a shall in the statute. The board can be accepted for maintenance if it's, or a road can be accepted for maintenance if it's constructed prior to a certain date. I believe that's 1990. Regardless of any inconsistencies, the board may spend money on accepting roads for maintenance, and those are our tertiary maintenance standard roads. A road can also be accepted for maintenance if it's declared a county highway. By declaring county highway, it pretty much opens up the county's checkbook on doing whatever the board decides they want to do with the roadway. And to declare a county highway, there's 3 ways a road can be declared a county highway. one, the Board of Supervisors can unilaterally declare a road a county highway. That's 286701A, and in 286701B, that statute says a road can be declared a county highway by the Board of Supervisors upon recommendation of the county engineer, or by presenting a petition signed by 10 residents of the county.
And so what is your motion? Want to change in that system?
I want it's my belief that it would behoove the county government and our relationship with our residents that we expand the role of the Transportation Board. Right now, we have methods that roads are approved for taking into the system, which bypasses the Transportation Board completely, which is not what I would consider the standard or normalized or the process that the public perceives. And that those, whether it's expanding, or requiring that all roads, whether tertiary highways, tertiary roads, county highways, et cetera, all of them go through the commission, except unless it's an emergency, but that's always been the case.
And Madam Chairman, may I expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely, thank you.
It's always important to know how we currently do business. And currently, the reason the Transportation Commission was set up and the way it's always been, and it doesn't mean that it can't be changed, is the Transportation Commission only deals with capital roadway improvements, and that is deciding whether to basically pave a roadway. The Transportation Commission, in their bylaws and creation, were never intended to deal with maintenance issues or the accepting of roads for maintenance.
And that's why this is in front of us to expand the process, whether it's HERF dollars, whether it's general fund dollars, whether it's Public Works deciding it, whether it's residents deciding it, we're all competing for those same resources. And because we're competing for those same resources, I believe that it would behoove the Board of Supervisors to demonstrate that is our intention and our desire to be the public to be more involved, that we're more transparent, there's more eyes on the problem, there's more bodies out there explaining the problem. We need the Transportation Commission's involvement in that process.
Thank you. Supervisor Johnson, since you're the one that initiated this in 1997, I'd like to hear from you. Do you have any comments?
This was one of the first things I did when I got into office, because it was an item I'd used for election purposes. I thought it was a problem. And it took away the power of the board to divvy up the HERF funds into the 3 districts at that time and build the roads that they thought were necessary. I think it has served real well. It's only advisory commission. It only advises. And in the 19 years that it's been in place, we've only had, I believe, one time when the board overrode the advisory council. I didn't always agree with, the recommendations to pave Stockton Hill Road all the way to the Oregon state limits, but, that's what they came up with. I think now that we're into five districts, and while I keep an eye on Supervisor Watson, I think the board can make the decisions. We have the staff. I think it's another layer of government that I had no idea that it would actually last this long. I think it was a great commission at that time. I know in my district, now that it's so small with such limited amount of roads, nobody really wants to even be on the commission. So I think the number of meetings has dropped down because they have less and less to do. I don't see expanding their role. That's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you. And Supervisor Watson, I'd like to hear from you, please.
Well, thank you. Probably a good percentage of those 800 and 1,200 miles of roads are in my district. The Transportation Commission was put together for capital road improvements, which is totally different from maintenance. And so anytime there is an opportunity for people in my district that want to come and present their petition, I've certainly presented it. Just recently, Cali Lucero was adopted by my district. I really don't see any real reason to expand this commission. It's difficult at best to find people to serve on these commissions. And having only 5 meetings of the 12 of this last year, I read each and every one of those agendas. On each one of those agendas were simply educational items. There were no items for decision-making, as I recall. So I'm really not in any favor to expand the commission to include the maintenance. There are 3 ways to bring maintenance to it. So I prefer to deal with them face on, one-on-one.
Okay,
May I ask a question too? Does anyone see any unintended consequences, to doing that? Would it be sort of like a time? Would it make the timing go slower? I mean, what would be a negative, the downside of expanding it?
Well, I would think that the final authority, and it's the Board of Supervisors, would make the final decision whether or not the roads would be accepted or improved. Is that right?
Madam Chairman, that's correct. The board, regardless of the decision or recommendation of the commission or the county engineer or Public Works for that matter, the board is the final call on allocating of funds. You saw that item on the agenda today regarding Supervisor Angus's questions on maintenance and allocation of funds. There's quite a process that Public Works goes through. We have a pavement evaluation program. We also meet with the foreman and go over all the roads in the county for maintenance and try to see which roads are the most distressed, especially on our pavement program, and try to put the money in the best value as possible and make that recommendation to the board based not on the politics and not on the board districts, but on the greatest need within the county. So you're getting engineering judgment regarding the maintenance, regarding a road being constructed at no cost to the county coming into our maintenance system. On those evaluations, what we do is either they meet standards or not. That's really not a commission or a committee call. It is a Board of Supervisors call on whether to accept them or not, but it's an engineering judgment call on whether they do meet the standards and meet the conditions of being able to be accepted for maintenance. On the petitions that are received for accepting roads for maintenance by declaring them a county highway, that's a unique issue to where these particular roads don't fall under any other category except that they had been constructed at no cost to the county. And basically, either those come in front of you through recommendation by the county engineer or through a petition request by those people that have constructed the roads and wish that they would be maintained. So either they meet standards or not, and that petition process is just used as a vehicle. It's really not used as a committee decision-making process. So those roads either meet standards or they don't.
Okay, thank you. I've got a couple of questions that I'd like to ask, but first off, I want to compliment our commissioners and all of the previous commissioners for their volunteer service and all the good work that they've done over the past year since 1997. But I also checked in the past year and did see that there were 5 meetings canceled out of 12 last year, and the agendas did seem very, very light. So my thought is that the commission is an additional layer of government, and right now the talk with supervisors amongst ourselves and the general public is we need to reduce the layers of government between the people, and I think it's our job to look at how we do business in Mohave County. Is this a good thing, or is this a hinder to getting roads approved by our citizens? And I got to tell you, my biggest complaint in District 4 are county roads, and it doesn't seem to be an easy way to get a road brought into the maintenance system. And it isn't easy to get HERF funds from being swept by the governor. So, we have the problem with HERF funds, we have the problem with way too many roads that need to be improved, and everybody that lives on one of these roads is wanting their road improved, and I would too. So it's just a very frustrating thing with Mohave County supervisors, and the Transportation Committee has served their purpose, and I think they've done a good job. I think that the cost to having the commission is minimal, but we do supply the commission with a clerk, an assistant clerk. We require that the meetings be attended by the county engineer, public works director, a county attorney, a planning director, a clerk, and an assistant clerk. So that's a lot of personnel that are going to these meetings. So I'm just wondering if this is a hindrance to getting roads maintained and approved, and I just wish the process was easier. So I know when this was brought up at the last meeting, I didn't disagree with Supervisor Moss at that time until I started doing research and everything, and I do have concerns, and I don't know what the answer is. Would it be easier for the people if the commission was not there, or as Supervisor Moss is recommending, should we expand the duties and give them more responsibility as a volunteer unpaid commission? So,
if I could, Madam Chair, on that, there's 3 points that came up during the comments of Supervisor Johnson, Watson, and yourself that I think we need to further explore. The purpose of my bringing this issue before us was to expand the role of the commission. And what I heard was that the commission is having short meetings or not having meetings because they don't have enough to do. So when it comes to that, giving the commission more work to do would alleviate the problem you just described. Secondly, when it comes to service, at least in my district, and I presume in Supervisor Angus's district, there are lots of people who want to be on this commission. So if it's truly a county-wide commission, and it's 10 seats, if the individual districts can't fill them, I'm certain the other districts could. And finally, and this is, I think, the most important point, Supervisor Johnson, in 1997, helped create this commission. And he did it in part because when he was a knowledgeable citizen running for election, he was not, Supervisor Johnson's a very intelligent man, and I'm certain he wasn't amongst what I would consider the most ignorant percentages of our population. He was worried about cronyism and favoritism and board members dividing up the loot, so to speak, in order to reward friends and punish their enemies. And that's Supervisor Johnson, who's a smart guy. Can you imagine the general public, what they think of our road dollars and how they're being spent? This Transportation Commission is ideally situated for us to continue to educate the public, to continue to get more public involvement, and for us to ensure that there's greater transparency in the running of our government, and as I think everyone's acknowledged, for minimal cost. I don't consider it an additional layer of bureaucracy. I consider it an additional layer of checks and balances to make sure that the monies are being well spent. I do keep seeing Jeannie Kench out there raising her hand, but that's the chairman's job to acknowledge you. I'm not allowed to. And so that my point is, If we want to solve these problems and restore public trust, we need to expand the role of the commission, and they're situated to deal with it.
Mayor.
Supervisor Watson, yes.
Supervisor Moss, you bring to the table a great number of brilliant ideas, and I agree with many of them. I do.
I hear a butt coming.
The only problem I have is in the preservation and rehabilitation of these roads. Those decisions are made by the professionals that deem it which roads are necessary and which are the priorities. My fear is, by expanding the role of the commission, is that there will be sometimes a misjudgment or a bias towards one project over another where we're not looking at exactly what needs to be done. And when we take out the professional guidance in this is really my fear.
Yeah. Supervisor Watson, that's a good comment, and I think it's something that should be further clarified. No one is saying that Public Works' role will be diminished. They would serve the exact same function that they serve now. But they would first check with the commission, who are 2 members from each of the supervisorial districts, and they will brief them on the subject. They would follow the exact same problem or process. It's just one more step here. And if Public Works says the commission is not being reasonable, the last stop in the process is the Board of Supervisors. We decide, always through this. And there's a second tier here. There's 2 ways of expanding the commission. One is that whether a road comes into the system or not. Because right now we have ways that it comes directly to the board and bypasses commission. Second is the maintenance side of things. And I think both should be brought to the commission first, but we can choose one or the other as a test case.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Angus?
I just want one thing on the record. You said that people are looking for smaller government. I don't think they're talking about citizen advisory councils. I think they're talking about bureaucracies and, big public works departments and big health departments and things like that. I've never heard someone knock on my door and tell me to get rid of citizens advisory councils, but I see both sides of it. And in my district, I have the least. I have very few roads, if any, maybe down by Catherine's Landing. So, I certainly don't want to step on what I don't know. But I do not think that we should get rid of this advisory council at all, for a lot of reasons. But yet I don't really see the need right now in expanding, or maybe as a test case and maybe in some of them. But I think the maintaining and we should leave it to the professionals, for just the reasons that you talked about. It just kind of makes sense to me. But I do think that there's a need for it, probably for what Supervisor Johnson thought, 1997. If I may ask, there are some empty seats on that commission. Is there a reason that they're not filled? You just can't get people to do it, or is it just not caring, or what's the reason?
Well, I can't speak for the other supervisors, but I can tell you, speaking for myself, I was waiting, trying to find someone that I felt was qualified that would be interested, and I do have a person interested. Whether or not that qualification is what I desired is the reason that I was putting off my appointment. So with that being said, I would like to hear from Steve Lukowski. I've got a couple questions that I'd like to ask our director. Good morning. When we put together our 5-year plan for capital improvements, was that sent to the commission?
Madam Chair, correct. The Mohave County Transportation Commission reviews and makes recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on each capital improvement road program for each fiscal year.
And who put the recommendations together?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the Public Works Department, under my direction, assembles the Capital Improvement Road Program for presentation to the Transportation Commission, and makes a staff recommendation to the Commission for consideration in recommending such program to the Board of Supervisors for ultimate approval.
Okay, and then the Transportation Commission, did they make any changes to the recommendations at all?
Madam Chair, I have the road program in front of me that was approved for this fiscal year 16. By and large, and this is really where we're positioned revenue-wise, Mohave County has been aggressively undertaking those capital road improvement projects that are federally funded, or at least partially federally funded, which require a nominal county copay, and also a large portion of our capital road improvement road program is comprised of, right now it's a $500,000 allocation of the toward capital pavement preservation. Currently, staff has, and I do have just an example here. You know, staff has put together an internationally recognized capital pavement preservation program. This is just an example of a publication that recognizes that in an international road arena. And what we have found is just with our existing roads, our 800 miles of existing roads, approximately 45% of those roads are at their structural service life. They require some level of structural treatment, and what staff has done is, through this program, come up with a very state-of-the-practice, if not state-of-the-art, approach toward applying engineering criteria toward identifying and prioritizing those roads deserving of the near-term attention for structural rehabilitation. And we've been working under a $500,000 budget. We present that as a budget to the Transportation Commission for consideration and approval. But to answer your question, yes, we do have one roadway that was programmed for consideration in FY17, and that was Cali Del Media. The Commission some time ago did recommend to the Board, and the Board established Cali Del Media as a county highway from Camp Mohave Road to Camino, Colorado. It's a quarter of a mile. It's in the vicinity of the Coyote Run subdivision. The subdivision was not required at the time to complete this as an off-site improvement, so the Commission did acknowledge this particular improvement in place in the SERP.
Okay, thank you. Do you have an estimate of the money that would be saved if we did dissolve this commission, as far as county personnel, doing the minutes, the reimbursement for mileage, all that? Do you have any kind of a ballpark figure as to what it cost the county to have this commission?
Madam Chair, members of the Board, I often say it's my staff that makes everything go, and I give tremendous credit to our office supervisor, who serves as the clerk to the Transportation Commission. And in the course of a year, I would estimate that individual spends approximately 80 hours preparing commission agendas, processing commission business and expense items, attending meetings and preparing minutes. Myself and my staff, I guess I'll keep it at more the management level. I would estimate that I spend approximately 60 hours a year supporting the commission and attending to their information needs. And with regard to our management team, we do have an engineering manager that attends every meeting and coordinates any staff follow-up and related work, and I would estimate he would spend approximately 40 hours a year. So these are annual figures.
Okay, so now I'm going to really put you on the spot. I'm going to give you the freedom to just tell the Board how you feel. Does the Transportation Commission, is that helpful to you in your position as a Public Works Director, or is it just a nice thing that we have that supplements? I mean, just your honest opinion.
Well, Madam Chair, members of the Board, I concur with County Administrator and County Engineer Hendricks in his characterization of the various activities by which The Board of Supervisors, through its Public Works Department, considers public petitions for road maintenance, which are largely based on staff of professionals identifying whether those petitions for maintenance meet a particular engineering standard. With the county highway establishment, as well as oversight of the SERP, there's a consideration with regard to expenditures of those funds that are available outside of our operations budget, which are limited, as you know, for the improvement or potential rehabilitation of existing roadways. When I took the position of director, I saw an immediate need, and certainly Director or County Administrator Hendricks saw that as well in transition, that there's a tremendous focus that needs to be done on our existing highway network, and that's why we undertook this internationally recognized capital pavement preservation program, which really allows us to apply good engineering judgment and industry recognized engineering standards towards basically populating a list of those roads that need to be attended to, as well as those roads in a priority order to select from. So it's just a matter of budgeting after that. So, in my position, I think we're very well positioned to make those choices under the current revenue stream that we are, and that's what's really focused on. Cause our focus to be on chasing down these federal dollars to accomplish as much other work as we can across the county. Now, those federal dollars are typically predicated on specific locations that meet a particular traffic safety or other type of federal requirement to expend those dollars. We've had conversations in the past with regard to, say, County Route 1 in Golden Shores that receive federal funding for a roundabout, and those dollars were predicated on spending at that location because there was a demonstrated traffic safety need in that particular location. So we're typically a little handcuffed with regard to where we can spend those funds that have federal dollars tied to it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do any of the other supervisors have questions for Mr. Lekowski? Okay, seeing none. Is there any further discussion before I call for the vote? Thank you.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There is not a motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the Board of Supervisors expand the roles of the Transportation Commission to include the acceptance of all roads, regardless of originating legal source, into the Mohave County system for review and recommendation prior to submittal to the Board of Supervisors for approval, but not maintenance.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay, motion on the floor, asking for a second. Apparently the motion dies for lack of a second.
May I make a motion?
Go ahead.
I make a motion to keep the commission in its current state and for what it does now, instead of expanding it, but keep it for its obvious checks and balances function.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor?
Discussion on that, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I guess the question I would have is hearing what kind of time and that staff is spending on this for a committee that's not meeting that much. Supervisors are saying mostly it's informational. I believe that this is something that maybe has run its course. It's always something we can bring back. It's always something we can bring back if we need to, but I think it's run its course now with the amount of time that staff is spending on this. The attendance at it is not great. That would be mine.
Madam Chair? I think that's a dangerous precedent you might set. I mean, we can say that about all our boards and commissions. I mean, have you ever been to a public health meeting? There's lots of people that miss those meetings, and I think that for probably the reasons that Supervisor Johnson started the whole thing, I think you start taking these things away, And what Madam Chair suggested about, transparency and those kinds of things, we're going back to the dark ages there. So I think you have a real problem there if you take this away.
But this isn't in statute, this was just something I made up.
Okay, the Planning and Zoning Commission, is that required by statute?
Yes,
How about health?
yes. Health is too.
The health is too? Okay. Do we have any commissions that are existing that are not required by statute that anybody is aware of?
Madam Chairman, not off the top of my head. I'd have to research that.
All righty.
But if I may,
Supervisor Watson.
back to the issue of the Transportation Commission, I'd be more willing to support it for a year and bring it back next year. If there's no great need for it, then recess it then.
Is there a reason that they're not having a lot of things put in front of them? I mean, can they be given more things, or is it just, is it at the discretion of Mr. Latowski? How do they get these things? Who decides what goes in front of them?
Money.
Madam Chair, Supervisor Angus, the Commission's role is particularly driven by the submission of public petitions to establish roads as county highways. And quite honestly, we just have not seen a significant influx of petitions. They've been few and far between.
So can't they just be called in as needed instead of maybe on a regular schedule? So if money is an issue?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Angus, that is purely the discretion of the chairperson of the Transportation Commission. They do have the opportunity to cancel meetings.
Well, that might be something that can be considered if this is the first time I heard the money part of it being put out there. But if that's a big issue to the rest of the board, maybe that could be taken into consideration.
I have a question, Madam Chair, Mr. Latowski.
Okay.
If you're petition-driven, why are all these education meetings being called?
Madam Chair, Supervisor Johnson, staff provides support to the Transportation Commission, and it is, we basically provide assistance to the extent of we're a resource for the Commission, and it's from time to time the Commission desires to learn more about certain activities that happen either at the county level or the state level, and we just provide support to that. So really, the informational related agenda items are driven by the Commission.
But that's not part of what the original was for holding meetings for educational purposes for the Transportation Commission. I mean, I have no problem if they have an agenda that says we're looking at this road, and by the way, here's a presentation, or here is paperwork that we can send with somebody. But if we're just calling meetings and putting our staff time and resources into having meetings for these people without any real purpose, that doesn't seem like a really good use of money to me at all, or time.
Well, I can agree with that. So like I said, if it could be called as needed, these meetings.
If I could make a comment as the chair, I think with the budget year coming up, we're going to be looking at mandated services and unmandated services, and I think we're going to be making a lot of really hard decisions in this coming budget year. And there may be some services that are appreciated that we may lose so that we can balance the budget without increasing taxes. So, this may be just the first meeting of many meetings where we have to decide whether or not we're going to fund things that our citizens have gotten accustomed to and they like them, but, the money's just not there. So that's just something I think we need to realize, that in this financial crunch that we're going into, we're going to have to do more things like dissolve an unmandated commission. Thank you, Mr. Lekowski.
Point of order.
Supervisor Watson.
Could we have the motion reread, please?
Oh, my goodness.
It shouldn't be that long.
The motion is to keep the commission in its current state.
I believe there was also the addition that there would be
1 year review?
A one-year review?
That's what I would like to add, but I think it was also, it had nothing to do with maintenance. Wasn't there a portion of that?
Well, that would be as it is now, because they don't do the maintenance now.
Actually, I believe that was part of Supervisor Moss's initial.
When I proposed expanding the role of the commission, I, in keeping in Supervisor Watson's concerned, exempted maintenance. I believe Supervisor Angus's motion impliedly includes no maintenance because they don't get it now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
There's a point of clarification also with Supervisor Angus. Would we be going back to what basically it's just a reaffirmation of the Transportation Commission with a one-year review, but would we say, yes, we need to start following those rules where it's just for the appointed things, that they don't get off on other tangents of education and that sort of thing, of tying up staff time? I guess that would be.
What was the original, do we have like the bylaws or the rules that govern that district?
They're on, I think they're on the backup, I believe, I think.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that, because I know that there's been a few trips taken and things like that, that I kind of question myself whether that's necessary.
I can tell you one of those trips was to Phoenix to the ADOT meeting to advocate for funds to be spent in
To
Mohave County.
advocate. Oh, okay. Well,
That's one of the
that
many
worked, huh?
valuable things that the Transportation Commission
Yeah.
gives to us.
Okay, well, thank you for telling me that.
But I guess even with that, you're having a commission go down there and representing Mohave County Transportation Commission. Well, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but that's, people can go as citizens of Mohave County, but if they're representing Mohave County, I have a problem with that, unelected people doing that.
True.
I mean, because they always, today they agree with us, but next time they might not.
Okay, are you clear on the motion, Supervisor Watson, or you want it read again?
I'm satisfied that there's no change in the current.
No change.
Okay, and we'll revisit in 1 year, is that correct?
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Yes.
And a second. There's no further discussion. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. We'll bring it back in 1 year. Okay, item number 30, discussion of possible action, Ray, establish a board-appointed citizen animal shelter needs assessment committee comprised of one individual from each supervisory district appointed by the district supervisor and supported by the designated county staff deemed necessary and appropriate by the county administrator. Funding implementing the committee's recommendations to be contemplated during the Mohave County's upcoming budget process. Okay, I do not have anyone signed up to speak on this item. This is under Supervisor Moss's name, so I'll let you have the floor.
Yes, I believe it's come before the board on many times, or several times in the past anyway, regarding the animal shelter issues and how the Kingman Shelter, which serves all of Mohave County, is inadequate for its function. And it comes to the time where eventually we need to start taking official action. When I was exploring this with the county administration, and I believe Supervisor Bishop may have been involved here also. It turns out that the last report was done in 2007 or 2009, and it was greatly antiquated and out of date in many different ways. And rather than hiring professionals to update that report and spend money, much like we did with the Kingman Library, I believe it might be better and faster and less expensive if we just have a citizens commission take a look at that report, engage with county staff, do what inspections that need to be done in order to get that report updated, and make then a recommendation to the board that we can then use to obtain architectural services and things of that nature to timely advance the animal shelter, with the funding for that to be contemplated in this coming budget cycle, and based upon input from the Citizens Committee. So it's a cost-effective way to advance the issue of the animal shelter and not go out for budgeting or bids for budgeting on an antiquated, outdated report.
Okay. Does anybody else have any discussion?
I do, Madam Chair. I guess, why would we do this when it's not even on our radar to build one?
Well, it's on my radar. I'm not sure about yours.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, my proposal before, I was obviously on the losing end, was the three facilities, but the board has said that nothing else will be done until we do a court, so why would we?
We have to, when it comes to the court, the animal shelter and the court comes from two separate funding sources. The court is the quarter-cent sales tax monies. The animal shelter, if it can be budgeted, and we need the updated report to determine that, would come from the general fund. There's no separate income stream for the animal shelter. So they're not in conflict with one another. When it comes to whether we can build a shelter or not, that's really going to be, in my mind, a two-step process. The first step is the updated report. What is it that we want in concept? And then second, we would have to get a professional opinion as to the cost associated with that once that updated concept is there. So the court, I don't think, has anything to do with the animal shelter, financially speaking. And two, to get an animal shelter built depends upon having the study updated so we can actually get a cost estimate so we can evaluate whether we can afford it within the upcoming general fund. Did I say that properly?
No, you got it. But it's coming from the general fund. There's two things I guess I could ask the finance director if she's here. But the other question is, I think the board should come together as to what we think or understand as a board the role of our animal shelter should be. I mean, I think that some people get carried away. I'm not saying board members, but the public might misunderstand that we're building a humane society where that's not our job unless the board wants to do that. We have an animal shelter that takes care of loose dogs and lost dogs, and 3 days later they're transferred to somebody else or put to sleep. We're not doing
When it comes to the function of the animal shelter, I think that has to do with the study that's being contemplated to be updated, and that's why each board member would appoint someone to order to have that input. Is what is our direction? They can get together, and that gives them the basis to bring the study back to us, and the board is always having the final say once we have our input into that report. This is just a first step to get this back on the road, to put the train on the track.
I guess we can always discuss it in the motion, but I would think the board would have to have the decision before we put somebody out, so that in case it's 3-2, or I mean, it could be everybody together on it, but so that people know that are doing a study, if we go that way, what they're looking at.
Well, I think the county administration, when they assign someone to interact with the study committee, could provide guidance as to costs and to also to outline alternatives. So when it finally does come to the board, we have alternative 1, 2, 3, whatever it may be. So I think this is information gathering for us with the commission or the study committee and the county administration interacting. What can we do within the potential finances available? And then they come back to us at some point in the future so we can decide, A, which of the alternatives do we like? 2, can we afford it? Or 3, do we have a better use for the money?
Right, I guess I don't like the options because I think the board's going to make a decision whether we're a humane society or an animal control. I think that would be something we would go ahead with.
Or somewhere in between, depending on what we can afford and what the committee recommends. But I don't think we're a humane society. That's a nonprofit entity that we have tasked running it right now. But that's not the Mohave County.
No, but I mean where people, you know, and I use Havasu because I'm familiar with that, where they keep animals an extended period of time and they have a more quality of care is greater and life expectancy is a lot greater than the county's role. Right.
Yes, and I believe right now they're running the Kingman Shelter in a sort of a hybrid manner, right, in that it's not a humane society, but they're doing the best they can within the resources they have to move it that direction, if not actually taking it across the finish line.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Lloyd, and I'm guessing that we're down to, say, $2 million when we get done. I think that's probably where we'll be at an animal control. But it is my understanding that we've had preliminary discussions regarding the budget coming up next year. Mm-hmm. And the best case scenario is staying flat. Second case scenario is we're taking a 5% cut across the board again. I'm not putting you on the spot too much, but I guess when do you see an additional couple of $1 million that you can hand over to the board to spend as we please?
I don't see a couple of $1 million extra that would actually be generated from an increase in revenue for at least 2 years. And then again, depending on what occurs, there's predicted that a downturn would again occur in 2019, 2020. So we would need to be prepared and have sufficient reserves available for that. In terms of one-time capital outlay, it depends on the amount that's proposed for the animal shelter. But certainly the board can discuss and has already mentioned selling unused or vacant properties for one-time monies. So that's a possibility of utilizing that, of partnering with the communities for donations. There's an option of that, or of at least for the city of Kingman, partnering with them for offsetting those costs. And again, I'm not sure what the amount is. I believe that years ago it was estimated to be $5 million, and that's certainly not what we would project today. It would be half of that, $2 million, $2.5 million, $3 million, I would say. And really, that's just a really, really preliminary estimate. But those are the kinds of things that I guess I would recommend at this point in time. I don't see a future revenue stream building that up without an extension of the existing quarter cent, or the board adopting a new quarter cent tax or some percentage of, and then dedicating portions of that to capital improvements.
We're just looking at your general fund, though. We're not looking at additional sources. We're looking, do you have the money in your?
Yeah, I agree with you that right now we're flat. Revenues are actually up a bit, but so are the matching expenses, primarily because we are offsetting those revenues, as we discussed during the budget, with the cost shifts to the state. So we've had to absorb those during the first quarter, and things are even. I would predict by the end of the year that we end even in the same situation that we had expected.
That's the only question I had.
Great. Since this is, thank you, Madam Chair. This is a multi-step process, and I understand that somewhere along the process our intent and our plan will intersect with the budget and what we can afford. But when it comes to the cost of a study committee interacting with our county staff to update that report, would that have any adverse impact on our budget and the ability to pay our bills?
No, not directly. I mean, there's indirect costs, but, part of the duty that we have is to support the goals and provide information to the board and to the citizens for various options.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lloyd.
Madam Chair?
Supervisor Angus?
This is probably not the right time to bring this up, but we did talk about the quarter cent sales tax, and what I had been told, and I think what we've been working with, was that we were going to pay off the jail, but now I'm hearing that we're not going to be paying off the jail. And so what does that do to that pot of money?
That's a good question. The answer to that is that we will incur 2 years of additional interest expense, but we will not have to have the general fund absorb the $500,000 and change for the maintenance that is associated with that building while it's still under lease.
Okay, so, but we had allocated it. So what's going to happen to that $500,000?
We had not yet allocated that. That would have been included in the 17 budget, which was one of our concerns that we'd have this unfunded liability to absorb the additional $500,000.
Does this relate to the animal shelter in some way?
I think it's funding source discussions, really.
Funding, yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a question on that? Just make sure I'm clear. When it comes to the reason we're not paying off the jail this year is because under contract, the existing contract, there's a prepayment penalty if we pay it off early. Would that be an accurate statement?
Yes, the first redemption date is noted in the indenture agreement to be April 1st of 2018. And there are some unintended consequences if the county would pursue that earlier legal action. We did consult with the bond counsel, our legal advisors, and they recommended that we follow the redemption date.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lloyd. So what I think when it comes to item 30 is, let's get the process started, let's get the information together, and then we can compare that information, the need compared to available budget. But this is the first step before we even get there. I mean, whether it's site selection, size of the shelter, the amenities offered, purpose, as brought up by Supervisor Johnson, there's probably dozens of questions that need to be answered. And the sooner we start, the sooner we can get done, because I can see this as being quite involved and detailed.
I guess, Madam Chair, the first thing is, it seems to be a little curveball that other board members know about us not making a payment to our jail that I have no idea about, since that's been talked about for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's why we put money aside. So I'm not real happy about finding something out of the board meeting about millions of dollars that I had no idea. The other part, Supervisor Moss, is that, I mean, if we have the money come budget time, I have not the money, but if we can see where we're going to have money to build a animal shelter or another facility, because I still think that the coroner's office, while somebody might disagree with me, the care of our deceased loved ones is pretty important to me. And if I had to make a choice, I would choose that before I would the animal shelter. But I just don't like the idea of having a committee and have everybody get their hopes up, and then it just sits on the shelf like we do every other thing that we put together and have no money to fund.
I understand, Madam Chair, if I may. I understand your concern about, we do disagree on the coroner situation, but that's no surprise to anybody. When it comes to the animal shelter, I think because of this conversation and what we're telling the people we're going to appoint and what's going to be, it's been in the public view, everything we do is dependent upon dollars. And this committee would show forward progress, would show the intent of the board, would also enable us to figure out the necessary budget and compare that to what we have available to us, assuming we can get it done in time, which is an assumption, and at least move forward on this very important issue. It's been sitting there for 7 or 8 years now, since the last report, I believe. And I think that our public would like us to, because it's the committee members we're appointing aren't being paid. So, and I assume we're all going to appoint people who have some expertise and some knowledge on these issues, and that we can get that report updated fairly cost effectively.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Is there further discussion from the board? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we establish a board-appointed Citizens Animal Shelter Needs Assessment Committee comprised of one individual from each supervisory district appointed by the district supervisor and supported by designated county staff deemed necessary and appropriate by the county administrator. Funding for implementing the committee's recommendations to be contemplated during the Mohave County's upcoming budget process.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, passes 4-1. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
No, let's not adjourn.
All afternoon.